to you live from City Current Studios in Midtown Memphis. It's Stephen Kirkpatrick with Executive Speakers on Speakers. I'm back after hiatus. I'm ready to go. I've got economist and future tech expert Shawn DuBravac on the show with me. We're talking about driverless RVs, what questions he gets asked at dinner parties, and Shawn sets a record during 3 random questions. Glad to be back. Time to put your fun pants on and stick around because it's going to be awesome. I am so excited to be back with you from my hiatus doing podcasts for IASB. They were pretty awesome podcasts. Andrew was with me. Andrew's like my security blanket now. Like I cannot do a podcast without Andrew like being next to me. He didn't do a whole lot of anything. He was just there just in case I needed him. But anyways, ISB podcasts were amazing. ISBweb.org. You can go find those. But I'm so glad to be back with Executive Speakers on Speakers because I can have fun. I don't have to tone it down. And we're going to talk with some amazing people. Just like the person I have today. My guest is Shawn DuBravac. He is a global futurist and trendsetter, New York Times bestselling author of Digital Destiny, How the New Age of Data Will Transform the Way We Work, Live, and Communicate. He's a former chief economist, Consumer Technology Association, and he's a senior tech industry economist featured in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and CNN and MSNBC. Shawn, how's it going, man? Good to have you.
Glad to be here with you, Stephen. We are glad to have you back. And Andrew, we're glad to have you back, too.
Man, everyone's happy to have Andrew back. You know what? Andrew is about to be married for 2 years. He's got a wedding anniversary coming up over here. He's so excited. We were talking about that earlier. Shawn, what's going on? How are you? Life good with you, man?
Things are fabulous. Yes, it's an exciting time to be around, closing out the summer. It's been a great year thus far and looking forward to the fall season.
All right, so I got to ask you a question. So you got your doctorate in the economy and economist or whatever they call that whenever you get to be a doctor economist. So whenever people at a dinner party find out you're an economist, like what is the question that you get asked?
Oh, as soon as they find out you're an economist, they walk away, right? That's
well, that was the thing. I was like, is that an attractive thing, or are people like, oh God, like this is gonna be boring, I'm leaving?
Yeah, no, they walk away. I joke that I'm an economist that tries not to sound like an economist, but you're caught in this funny period because people don't want to hear from an economist, but I also can't claim that I'm a doctor because if I say I'm a doctor, they all say, oh, but you're not a real doctor. And so you're kind of caught in this funny middle ground that doesn't go anywhere. Yes, the PhD just doesn't have the same clout as the other one does. Oh, Lord. So talk to me about this tweet that you sent out talking about Alibaba wanting to redesign the retail experience. And and it's so interesting because there's so much out there right now about the retail experience and how much has changed and how much is going to change. So so first of all, a 2-part question. Number one, what is Alibaba? Because I kind of know, Andrew has no clue what it is. So what is it? Why should we know about it? And what is kind of their thoughts on how they're going to change or how they should or need to change the retail experience? Well, I think one of the big challenges that Alibaba is facing right now is that they've seen a shift in their leadership where their founder and CEO who really led the company to its greatness is shifting away. They brought in new leadership that's looking to continue that reign and continue to drive
quick,
things.
Shawn, hold on. Back up. What is Alibaba? We need to know that really quick.
So Alibaba is a major retailer in China. It is really a major supplier platform. They do a variety of different things, like many companies in China. They've got businesses in all sorts of marketplaces. And so
who would you compare them to in the United States, like company-wise?
Well, I think it's often compared to Amazon.
Yeah, you're wrong. You're wrong. You were totally wrong. You weren't even close to what you thought it was. I was wrong too, but you were really wrong. So, all right, sorry, we just had to settle that.
Where did you think it was, Stephen?
What did I say it was? I said it was a payment, like a payment thing or whatever. So,
well, and they do have payment systems. So you do see Alipay show up.
That's what it was. That's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about Alipay. Yeah.
Yeah, they have that. They do cloud computing. They're really known as an e-commerce and retail platform, but then they have tech businesses. So they're a large business, approaching $400 billion in market cap, one of the 10 most valuable public companies in the world. So they're really in a lot of different businesses, and they've done it's one of these classic Chinese success stories that has grown big and successful because it has successfully served the domestic market, and the domestic market there is big. And so now these companies are starting to look at how do we grow outside of where we've existed for a long time. And you're seeing Alipay, for example, and some of these other what historically were Chinese payment platforms starting to show up in the U.S., catering to Chinese tourists who are visiting to the U.S. and can pay using the platforms that they're accustomed to paying for. So we're in a world today where large companies are competing across borders in a number of different spaces.
And that is interesting when large companies start going across borders, because usually you just think of United States companies going across and serving basically United States people. You think about, I'm just thinking big ones like FedEx. Obviously, FedEx is a big one in Memphis, and they're all over the place, all over the world.
Yeah.
And McDonald's, come on, you can get a Big Mac wherever. But it's interesting that you have companies from China who are serving Chinese tourists in the U.S. and who are used to having Alipay and are able to and want to kind of continue that on. So let me ask you this: talking about future technologies, talking about disruption, how do you see, or how could you see, or a third part of the question, if you were a payments company in the U.S., how could you see Alibaba being a disruptor?
Well, first and foremost, we see them disrupting things by the method of payments, and we see not just Alipay and Alibaba, but another very successful platform in China, which you really can't operate in China without, is WeChat. And so WeChat is more than just a communication platform; it's also a payments platform. I've got friends that live in Shanghai. They pay their rent over WeChat, and it's really how they transact. They order things through the environment. And so I think a lot of U.S. companies are actually looking at some of these success stories and starting to incorporate them. I've certainly seen Apple incorporate features into iMessage and some of their other services that they're bringing to market that I've seen already existing in some of the large Chinese corporations like WeChat, Alibaba, other success stories there. So there's a lot of cross-pollination that happens. I think what you see U.S. companies doing is watching global competitors, looking at what resonates with their users, and then looking at, hey, can we incorporate that into our existing environments, our existing services and platform, and can we drive that to our consumers, and will that resonate with our core consumers? So there's a lot of that happening. I think innovation is extremely dispersed today, and executives are looking across the globe for it.
Yeah, that's good. I think it's interesting, just kind of our conversations before this podcast talking about executives, especially kind of medium and small companies who don't have, let's just say, a huge R&D development budget or a huge R&D division, looking at all of these things, all of these international competitors potentially. Let's say they give you a call. Where would you tell someone from a small or medium company who's looking at this potential disruption that's coming on? Where would you tell them to kind of start looking to say, okay, let's build a systematic way for you to innovate? Where would you kind of tell them to start? What's kind of ground zero for you of kind of a good way to synthesize all this disruption/innovation that's going on?
Well, I think you started it off right there. You want to have a systematic approach, and that really starts with thinking about the world differently. So you have to really build a mindset, and I like to say mindset over skill set as we move forward, because it's going to be important how you frame the world, how you think about the world, and being able to look at all of these dispersed pieces and then think about how they will impact me down the road. Maybe not directly, but those indirect impacts, I think, are going to become even more important. So it's looking at what I call the micro trends and trying to think about how those micro trends will impact me. So whether I'm working with a large company or a small company, it's about pulling off the blinders, trying to understand where innovation is happening and how it's happening, why it's happening, and then incorporating some of those same components into your existing business. I actually think it's a great time to be a small business, a medium-sized business, because the ability to scale ideas has never been so strong.
So true.
And you can start a startup within your own organization and then grab the pieces that you need, whether it's cloud storage, whether it's access, whatever it is, that the tools and the pieces all exist. You can put them together in a unique way, and you can really drive change at a macro level, at a very high level, through small measures. So I think it's a great time for executives across all size businesses to think about what their innovation story looks like moving forward.
So I want to change gears really quick. You talk a lot about future of work and what it looks like, and talk about HR managers. And I think the future of work is a fascinating topic because there's so many implications. I mean, really, it affects everyone, kind of what work would look like. So what question are you hearing from HR managers, or what scenario are you hearing from HR managers that is keeping them up at night?
I think there's a lot of things that are keeping them up at night. One is, how do I engage my workforce? I've got an environment where I have a variety of different workers working for me. I've got a large group of 50 plus workers that are working for me. I've got Gen Z that's coming in. I've got a millennial workforce that's there. And so how do I engage these different generations of workers in order to ensure that they're getting the things that they want? Also, what do my benefit packages look like when I've got a segment of my population, my workforce, that's getting ready to retire? So they're thinking about those type of things. I've got another segment of my population, millennials and Gen Z. They want more flexibility. They want free time. They want to engage in altruistic measures. They want companies to be and embrace service to their community and more broadly to those in need. And so I've got these competing demands on my limited resources. How do I ensure that I've got benefit packages that are robust for all of my different types of workers? And I think one of the things you're starting to see HR managers think about is, how do I really customize the experience for my workforce? Just like we saw this impact the consumer, and how you can go to Netflix, you and I can both be on Netflix, but have drastically different experiences. You and I could both have iPhones, but have drastically different app environments and different experiences on those devices. That same concept is starting to push to things like future of work. So how do I offer an array of benefits and allow my employees to pick and choose what's most meaningful for them, given where they are in their life cycle? And so I think these trends that we pick up that are playing out in technology end up playing out in all of these different spaces. Those are kind of the micro trends that I talk about when I work with executives or I speak at events.
So interesting thing talking about benefits, because I think one of the things that is and will continue to be just a white elephant in the room is healthcare and offering healthcare benefits. And I think it's interesting kind of what Amazon is doing, partnering with people, and then Berkshire Hathaway, what they've done on a private level to try and answer this question of how do we make healthcare costs more affordable. Would love for you just to kind of prognosticate and talk about that whole issue and how you see employers trying to tackle this monster of the rising healthcare cost.
Yeah, I think you hit it right there, Stephen. That's a great example where you've got Amazon, JP Morgan, Berkshire Hathaway partnering to try to find solutions for them. All of those companies have very large workforces. Obviously, healthcare costs a significant cost for them, and they're looking at how do we drive real value for our employees? How do we keep our employees happy and healthy while still maintaining the ongoing business? I think technology will clearly play a big role here. Sure. We're already starting to see some of the consumer technology products. Apple has repositioned the Apple Watch as a hub for your healthcare. And I think we're going to slowly start to see some of those type of tools implemented into a broader healthcare environment. You're seeing the ability to self-select and self-identify based upon metrics that you're capturing on a daily basis. And so just like we use data to tell us how fast we're driving, and then we get adjustments on our car insurance, I think you're going to see the same thing with health insurance, whether you're walking or you're doing some of these other things. Those will start to incorporate into our insurance plans. They'll start to incorporate into the type of the medical experience that we have. Obviously, telemedicine is an area that I see as a very promising area for delivering lower cost healthcare. There's a tremendous number of emerging technologies that we're starting to see. Things like AR and VR are going to help train physicians in a very different way. Even something as simple as speech recognition is helping doctors become more productive, because now they don't have to write their notes down. They can speak their notes, and that cuts down on some of the time that they have in writing up their notes. And so those little things all coming together now. We're at this really interesting inflection point, I think, in the history of the world, where all of these things that have been building for decades are now to the point where we can use them and we can employ them. And so now we're looking at what are some really interesting ways to employ these. And I think that's what some of the companies are looking at. How do we employ these technologies that are now market ready in entirely new ways that no one ever envisioned?
All right, I'm going to throw a curveball scenario at you right here. So obviously you've got JP Morgan, Amazon that have huge workforces, like we talked about. Do you think that we may see a day where they have in-house doctors that they basically pay and then send their employees to it, and then potentially open up private hospital? Well, you can do a full hospital, but somewhat private healthcare facilities for their employees to try and regulate cost.
Sure. I mean, you already see some of the largest tech companies offer a series of benefits. So they'll have sometimes doctors in their facilities that they can visit, and that is designed to create a benefit for their employees, but also to help manage costs. I definitely could imagine that type of environment where they find that it's cheaper to or best to employ a doctor and then use that doctor. I think that model will work in certain situations, but I think if you really look at how do we scale this across all businesses, all of everyone, not just in the US, but across the globe, then I think it's going to take more than just restructuring where the doctor sits. It's going to take thinking about the problem in an entirely new light. It's going to require looking at entirely new tools, techniques, technologies, all of those things to really rethink what healthcare looks like in a digital age.
All right, 10 years from now, what is going to be the biggest difference in the everyday person's life? What technology is going to be the biggest disruptor of the everyday person's life?
We've got a bunch right now on the horizon.
Sean, you got to pick one. You can't.
I don't want to pick one.
I don't care. You got to pick one.
Haven't you ever heard the old adage? I think it was President Truman. He said, "I'm tired of." He said, "I just want a one-armed economist," because he was tired of getting on this hand and on the other hand. So with a one-armed economist, you're always going to get two opinions. I would say,
I love how he pulls out his PhD on me in the middle of it. It's like, oh, well, I'm an economist now.
I think one of the things that you have to look at is it's not going to be any single technology that disrupts us. And I think that's one of the traps that businesses fall in, is they think, oh, if I just take this one technology, I put it to work, it's going to change everything. I'm going to be profitable. We're going to be proficient. We're going to be successful. But it takes putting the technologies together in the right way. So something like 5G, which you're probably already starting to hear a lot about, that is a decade-long technology deployment. So over the next decade, that has a tremendous potential to transform all of the things that we've talked about thus far. But without connecting things to that 5G network, it's really not that interesting. It's really not that meaningful. So it's going to take the deployment of sensors and other things like that to really change how we live, how we work, how we communicate, how we play. So I think it's a combination of some of these technologies. I think voice and speech recognition. We've only scratched the surface of how that might be deployed. Self-driving vehicles and automation broadly. I guess if you force me to pick one theme,
yes, I would say pick one theme.
Take a look at how automation is impacting us across every domain. And behind automation is, we talk a lot about artificial intelligence, and artificial intelligence has all these different things. So there's one idea, automation and AI combined, thinking about how those will impact all these different domains. And the way I like to think about artificial intelligence and AI is that it commoditizes prediction. It makes prediction really cheap. And so that's one of the things, if you think about technology, it's what does that technology make cheap? Because when it makes something cheap, all of a sudden we do a tremendous amount of it. So, Google makes search really cheap. And so we do billions of searches every year. Our smartphone makes taking pictures really cheap. And so now we take pictures of our food and we take pictures of, everything that we see because it's inexpensive and easy to do. And so AI really makes prediction cheap. And so that's going to show up in every part of our life. Obviously, you're already starting to see that show up in retail where it's trying to, and advertising where it's trying to predict what you might be interested in. But we're going to see that show up in lots of other places as well.
Interesting. Why do I need a self-driving car?
So that you can sit back and watch college football, Stephen. I know how much you like college football. So that you can sit back and you can watch the game. You can see the highlights. You can catch up on things that are happening in Memphis.
I love it. I love it. You stalked me. I love it. So so is that it? I mean, is it a lifestyle enhancement where literally, that 20-minute commute to your office, you can sleep or you can draw or you can work more?
Well, it definitely will help with safety. It'll improve safety.
Do you really think it's going to improve safety? Because I can't imagine. I know that there's a whole bunch of plaintiffs' attorneys who are like, dear God, I cannot wait to be the first attorney who gets to sue Ford Motor Company whenever one of their self-driving cars runs over someone.
Yeah, well, it'll definitely change. It definitely changes liability. It moves from consumer liability to producer liability. So it definitely changes the liability. And we'll still likely have accidents. We've already seen some self-driving cars have accidents that they caused or that they were the root behind. But by and large, it will reduce accidents. About 90% of auto accidents are caused by user error. And so it should help with that user error. I think it also changes the way we live, because now if I can get in a vehicle and I'm doing other things, then maybe I opt to live further away. If you look at urban settings, you're probably getting rid of multiple lanes of parking. If you think about your every average day city, you probably have parking on both sides of the road. Mm-hmm. In an environment that's fully self-driving, you won't have parking because those vehicles will move on to the next person. They're not going to need to park there. Certainly, if they are parking, they're going to park outside of the city where real estate isn't as valuable. And so it starts to really change what cities look like. It changes where we live. It changes the type of activities that we do. You and I were talking yesterday about the idea of self-driving RVs and how that all of a sudden starts. Have you heard about
this, Andrew? Self-driving RVs? This is crazy. This is crazy. Okay, so let's say you've got to work in Memphis and you got to go to Chattanooga. So instead of driving to Nashville, stay in a hotel, you just get in a self-driving RV. And that's your mobile hotel room. Is that not crazy?
That's crazy.
All right, sorry, Shawn. I totally hijacked that for you, but Andrew didn't know.
No, that's exactly it. And if you think of all the interstate exits and on-ramps where we've built entire small cities with hotels and gas stations and fast food chains, all of that could start to change if you're in an RV and you pass it in the middle of the night. So it starts to have pretty big ripple effects, not just in how we commute or how we are transported, but in all of these other things that surround that.
So I still want to go back to the same question about why. Why do we need this technology? Is just because it's available, or do you? Is it urbanization? Does it make urbanization easier? Is it a need that people have in big cities? What do you feel like the big driver is?
Well, I definitely think that you'll start to see it show up in urban environments where there are lots of constraints. And so, and we are, as a world, not just here in the US, but across the globe, we are urbanizing at a very fast clip. And so you're going to see more cities with more constraints. And so autonomous vehicles make a lot of sense. I think they make a lot of sense on a place like a college campus today. I mean, it will be many, many years. We're talking decades until cities are fully autonomous, and it will probably require them to outlaw normal vehicles in some of those environments. But I think like on a college campus where you've got a standard loop and you've got a shuttle right now that's running on that loop, a self-driving vehicle could be put in that environment. Already we have self-driving vehicles at a lot of airports. The monorail systems and other things, those are self-driving for the most part. And so I think in those type of closed environments, we're ready for self-driving vehicles today.
I think the crazy thing is, it's like in 5 years, we talk about flying cars. Like, how cool would that be? It's like, you got a self-driving car. It's like, I'm just going to go up about 200 feet in the air and fly to work. I've got zero traffic there. So anyways, that'll... oh gosh, self-driving RVs. That is going to be insane just to deal with all of that. Wow. Shawn, you've kind of blown my mind. I'm not going to lie. Blown my mind with a self-driving RV. So, question for you. What are some of the biggest questions you're getting on the road right now from your audiences? What are they asking about? Just in general.
So I think they all are looking at, I hear about all these technologies. What do they mean for me?
Right.
How's it going to change our business? How's it going to change our customer? So something like artificial intelligence, what does it mean for us? 5G, VR, AR, all these acronyms that get thrown around within tech circles. I think today what I see across the board is, what does it mean for me as a worker, as an employee, and that scales across every industry. What does it mean for hospitality? What does it mean for insurance? What does it mean for food services? Everyone wants to really think about how this is going to change them and how it's going to change their customers. So that's where a lot of my research has centered, and a lot of my focus has been on what does it mean for these different types of industries. Every company is becoming a tech company, whether they like it or not, and that's going to require them to do things differently. It's also going to require them to think differently. And so a lot of companies are exploring that. What does it mean to be a tech company? We've been around 100 years. You know, if you take a company like Harley Davidson or John Deere, what does it mean to now become a tech company? And what do we look like?
Interesting stuff. So last question right here. And this, again, we could probably spend about 8 hours talking about this. Automation, self-driving cars. How does that shift the U.S. economy specifically? Because obviously we're a manufacturing economy. Some people would argue we're still a manufacturing economy, but now we're a service economy. I know that I don't want to get into all that, but I mean, how do you see that changing just what the job market looks like and what the economy looks like?
Yeah, I mean, over the last 50 years, we've seen a tremendous amount of shift in the economy. And if you go back even further, 100 years ago, 98% of us were farmers. We were doing agriculture. Very few of us lived in urban settings. And then slowly over time, that shift today, only about 2% of the population is in agriculture, and everyone else is doing something else. And so we've seen that big shift. If you just look at growth rates of the economy, last 50 years, about half of our growth rate was driven by labor force growth, so adding new workers to the workforce, and about half of it was driven by productivity. So that's the enjoyment of technology and other things like that. If you look forward the next 50 years, we have much slower production of people. We have fewer people being born. We're adding less to the labor force. And so over the next 50 years, if you want to grow like we've been growing over the last 50 years, then a lot more of that growth is going to have to come from technology. So first and foremost, if we want to continue to enjoy the type of growth that we've enjoyed as an economy, you're going to have to start to look at automation and investment in technology broadly. We're clearly going to see shifts in the type of jobs that we do, and more importantly, in the tasks that we do. And so as we automate some of those things, I think it will really open us up to jobs that require a lot more cognitive capabilities. It's going to require us to be more creative. It's going to require us to think outside the box a lot more. I think those are the skill sets that will be in high demand over the next 50 years. It's the individuals who can think outside the box, who are creative, the ones who are solving problems that aren't easy to solve, because the easy ones will automate and the rest will be left to humans.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. That is good stuff. All right, Shawn, it's time for everyone's favorite segment. It's time for 3 random questions. You ready for this?
Give it to me. Let's go.
All right, time to test your knowledge. So here's how it is. We're going to find out how smart you are. So I ask you 3 random questions about a certain topic. If you get it right, I have new sound just for you. Okay? So if you get it right, hold on. Make sure this works. I'm doing this off my iPhone because we're trying to automate everything now.
Oh, yeah.
You get an oh, yeah, if you get it right. Okay?
Oh, yeah. All right.
If you get it wrong,
Oh, come on!
you get an oh, come on. All right? So I am going to ask, since you're an economist, I'm going to ask you 3 random questions about money. 3 random questions about money. If you get 3 out of 3, you're a genius. If you get 2 out of 3, you're pretty smart. If you get 1 out of 3, we're going to start questioning where you get your PhD from. And then 0 out of 3 is we're taking your PhD back. So,
All right.
First question. Within $10 billion, how much money is in Fort Knox? Within $10 billion, how much money is in Fort Knox?
Oh, wow.
What's the valuation?
That is a great question. I'm going to go with within $10 billion, huh?
Yep.
Let's say $100 billion in gold.
Oh, come on!
How far off was I?
Oh, big time. $210.8 billion in gold.
210. All right.
That's like 56% of the U.S. gold reserve is in Fort Knox. Crazy stuff. All right, we're 0 for 1. We're 0 for 1. All right, number two. What is the highest bill? I'll repeat this question twice. What is the highest bill ever printed by the U.S.? So what is the largest bill ever printed by the U.S. Mint that's actually like not one of those $1 million things you get from your grandparents, like that actually had value behind it?
$10,000.
Oh, come on!
Shawn, come on, man.
I'm 0 for 2. I'm 0 for 2.
All right, $100,000. $100,000 bill. It was printed December 18th, 1934 to January 9th, 1935. It was used for transactions between the Federal Reserve banks. There you go. All right, hey, a bonus question for you. I'm going to give you a 4th one. Which president was pictured on the front of that bill?
Ooh, so it was printed in the 30s.
Yeah, 1934, 1935. Which president was printed?
I'm going to guess, let's go with George Washington.
Oh, come on!
You really think that we go George? Hey, wow.
My track record is good so far.
If you want to call 0 for 3. Shawn, you may be the first person that goes 0 for 4 on 3 random questions, okay, which is impressive. Oh, God, it's Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was on.
Woodrow Wilson.
All right. Last question. This is multiple choice, so hopefully you can get this right. Okay.
I need to call Can Andrew jump in and help me? I might need to call a friend here.
No. Andrew's literally there just to laugh at people when they get stuff wrong. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Actually, this is funny. You said George Washington. This question is about George Washington. What year was George Washington put on the $1 bill? What year was George Washington put on the $1 bill? Multiple choice. I'm going to read the answers twice. Is it A, 1855, B, 1787, C, 1869, or D, 1898? A, 1855, B, 1787, C, 1869, or D, 1898?
I'm going to go D.
Oh, come on!
I'm at a
Hey, I'm the
loss.
first to go 0 for 4 in your 3-question challenge. That is history in the making right there, Stephen.
Shawn, you're a little too excited about your failure. That's all I'm going to say. You're a little too excited about your failure. I'm going to call George Mason and be like, hey, people, like, we need to call Sachs about this accreditation because I don't know what's going on here.
I'll roll it up and send it to you.
Oh, gosh. No, we don't want you to do that. Anyways, hey, Shawn, thanks so much for the time and being a good sport. Amazing.
Well, so what was the answer? You can't just leave us hanging there. You got to tell us the answer now.
I'll tell you the answer is 1869.
1869. All right.
1869, he was put on there. Sorry about that. Anyways, Andrew, thank you for being here and producing. Shawn, thanks so much for the time and for the insight. Definitely blew my mind on a couple things, and I'm gonna continuously Google like every 6 months about the driverless RVs and things like that. So yeah.
As soon as I have one, I'll pick you up in Memphis and we'll just head to the Grand Canyon. We'll keep going west.
I love it. I love it. Shawn, listen, man. Hey, best of luck to you in the fall. I know you're gonna be out there a lot, crushing it. And thanks for the time and for being a professional, man. You take care.
Thanks, Stephen. Catch you soon.
All right. Hey everyone, thanks so much for listening. Big thank you to Shawn DuBravac for coming in and blowing my mind with some really, really cool future trends. Thank you to Andrew, as always, for producing, and Jeremy and all the people at City Current for hosting us. For more information on Shawn, go to our website, www.executivespeakers.com, and search Shawn DuBravac. You can get videos, testimonials, as well as booking information. As always, it's Stephen Kirkpatrick with Executive Speakers on Speakers. I'll see you next time.